Have you ever stared at a blank page feeling totally stuck because your story could literally go in any direction? Yeah, it's that infinite possibility problem, and weirdly enough, it's not freedom that unlocks your creativity, it's limitations. Now, I know that sounds completely backwards. We're told freedom is good, right? No rules, total control, write whatever you want. But here's the truth: the more constraints you add to your story, the more creative you'll become. So let me show you why that's not just a nice idea, it's a storytelling superpower. Now, my name is Tim Graw. I'm the CEO of StoryGrid, where we teach writers how to write books that actually work. I'm the author of 6 books, including my most recent, The Shithead, which has been praised by New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestselling authors. Everything I teach is built on the expertise of StoryGrid's founder, Sean Coyne, an editor, writer, and story researcher with over 30 years of experience in publishing. So if you're here to learn how to tell a story that keeps readers hooked, you're in the right place. There are two types of constraints that are going to make your story and your writing better, and it's going to help unlock your writer's block so you can actually move. The first is selective constraints, and the second is enabling constraints. Now, both do very different things, but together they help your story snap into focus. So let's break them down one at a time. The first is selective constraints, and these are what you use to define the problem space of your story. Okay, so what does that mean? This is all about setting limits on where your story happens, what kind of world it is, and what kind of challenges the characters in your story are going to face. So instead of starting with, it could be anything, you give your story some walls, not to trap it, but to give it shape. So think about the Martian. He's stranded on Mars, limited oxygen, limited food, no way home. That's a massive constraint, and yet the story is totally gripping. Every problem is sharper, every decision feels like life or death. Or think about Stephen King's The Shining. You've got this huge empty hotel cut off by the snow with a supernatural force messing with your characters' minds. The location is the constraint, and it's terrifying. And then you've got Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, a love story shaped by the intense social rules of Regency era England. Elizabeth Bennet doesn't just fall in love, she has to navigate class, gender roles, family pressure, and limited choices. Those constraints create drama, tension, and growth. So, yeah, constraints don't limit the story, they're the container that gives it the power and gives your story shape. So, those are the selective constraints. You're pulling in the constraints to start giving some shape to your story, the box that you're going to tell your story in. Let's look at that second type, enabling constraints. And these are the tools for solving that problem of the selective constraints. So, those selective constraints define the challenge, but enabling constraints define the tools your characters have to solve them. And these all come down to genre. Now, remember, a genre is simply a promise to the reader about the kind of story that they're engaging with. So these enabling constraints are all about the genre conventions, the character traits, and the plot structures. And rather than being formulaic, because that's not what we're doing here, again, they're giving your story direction. So take Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. They've got the investigator, the genius detective. That character is an enabling constraint because now the story isn't, well, figure it out however you can. It's figure it out with logic, psychology, and deduction because that's the type of character that is the detective. So if we look at Whiplash, a performance story, you've got a brutal mentor, insane practice routines, and emotional stakes baked into every scene. Those elements enable the story to go somewhere intense, specific, and memorable. So let's go back to The Shining. Jack can't be reasoned with. That's an enabling constraint too. It forces the characters to run, hide, or fight. It's not negotiable. These constraints create pressure that forces innovation. They don't restrict creativity, they demand it. So when you're thinking about this story that you're telling, you can't do just whatever you want and still have a working story. You have to look at the obligatory moments in the conventions of your genre, and that's going to give the shape and momentum to the story that the reader will actually care about. So, what these constraints do is they force you into a box, which then is the trigger to open up your creativity. When you're looking at something as in, like, I can literally do whatever I want, you run into this idea of paradox of choice, where there's too many choices and you can't figure out which one you're supposed to do. And this applies directly to your writing too. When you can write anything, you often write nothing. Your brain freezes. But when you say, okay, this scene takes place in a sealed bunker, my character has a dying phone, and there's only one person they can call, and that person currently hates them. Now your brain's going to light up and you've got a problem to actually solve. And because the problem isn't easily solvable to you, guess what? It's also not easily solvable to your reader as well. So they get to go on this journey with you. So these constraints eliminate paralysis. They narrow your focus and they're going to fuel your creative choices. And here's the other thing about constraints that are really important. They are the source of the conflict. And remember, every story is about conflict. That is the engine of your story. So let's look again at The Martian. If Watney had infinite resources, that story would be done in 10 minutes. But give him 30 days of food, no communication with Earth, and one shot at rescue, well, now again, you've got real tension. So no constraints equals no meaningful obstacles, and no meaningful obstacles means no growth, and all of those put together mean boring writing. So constraints force your characters to face hard things, and the choices they make under pressure, that's where your reader's going to connect with them. So how do you choose constraints in your own writing? How do you do this so that you can narrow it down? It gives you the box you need and the momentum to actually tell your story. So first and foremost, you have to know your genre. Now, genre isn't all of those marketing genres that you see on the left side of Amazon or on the bookshelves at your favorite bookstore. Genre means specific things. It's all about the value at stake in your story, and you have to know these. Now, down in the description, I have links to all the different genres. We have articles on each of these that you can go through and learn about your genre. But when you know what genre you're writing in, you have to lean into that genre's constraints. If you're writing action, you need a chaotic environment, a ticking clock, life or death stakes. If you're writing horror, you need a setting that traps your characters, a threat that can't be reasoned with, a growing sense of isolation. If you're writing a love story, you need internal conflict, social obstacles, maybe a looming deadline. If you're writing a crime story, you need a clever investigator, misleading clues, a puzzle that must be solved. These aren't formulas, they're creative containers and they're what the reader expects from the story. So if you don't give it to them, they're not going to like your story. And so this is what's so great about it is you have these constraints that are built into the genres. And if you follow those constraints and use them effectively, you're going to create a story that readers love and that feels familiar to them in the way that makes them fall in love with your story. So the next time you're planning a scene or you're stuck and you're not sure what to do, I want you to ask yourself these three questions. The first is, what selective constraints define my world? Is the setting dangerous? Are the social rules strict? Is time running out? What are the things putting pressure inward on your character? What's creating that box that your character is forced to move around in? The second is, what enabling constraints shape the story's paths? What tools does your character have or not have in order to get what they want to pursue their objects of desire? And what genre elements can you lean into in order to give them those tools? And then third, how do both sets of these constraints create conflict? Where's the pressure point? What tough decision needs to happen because of these constraints? So if you're really stuck with your writing, if you're feeling writer's block, you're not sure where to go, I really want you to start small. Don't think about writing an entire novel. Can you just write one compelling scene and put constraints on it that make it more and more compelling for the reader? So just try it with one scene. Take something you're stuck on and throw in a tight deadline. a missing tool or a piece of info, a third character who complicates things. Suddenly, you're not just writing, you're solving problems and you're bringing the reader along for the ride. And that's where the good stuff happens. So, this is the big takeaway. Constraints aren't roadblocks. They're not the enemy, they are fuel. And anybody that tells you that when you're writing, you can do whatever you want and just throw stuff in and whatever comes to your mind, that is not creativity. Creativity is when it's focused and it forces you to deeper character choices. They create structure, tension, and clarity for your story. Just like a sonnet's rhyme scheme pushes poets to find the perfect line, or a musician finds endless possibilities with only 12 notes, you as a storyteller can unlock your best ideas when you set the right limits. Now, here's the thing I'm going to tell you. You're going to sit down, and this is going to help a lot. If you really dig into your genre, you understand constraints, both the selective and enabling, it's going to help you start writing more, but you're still going to wonder if you're getting it right. This is what I always got stuck on when I was trying to figure out all of these writing things on my own, is I kept trying to put them in my writing, and then I didn't know, did I do it right? Did I not do it right? I would take it to my writer friends or writers group and get kind of vague feedback. And what I really needed was good, specific feedback from an expert. And when I got that, my writing started getting better a lot faster. And so that's why we offer the scene writing workshops here at StoryGrid. It's a 6-week workshop that's going to help you level up your writing more in 6 weeks than 6 years of trying it on your own. How can I make that promise? Well, besides the 500 students that have gone through the workshop and absolutely loved it, it's also helped writers make this progress through direct feedback from expert StoryGrid coaches. So each week you're going to turn in a scene. Your coach is going to look at the writing and they're going to tell you, here's what you did right, here's what you did wrong, and here's how you can make it better. Along with that, we do daily exercises, we have live training, we have a community where you can meet other writers that are dedicated to their craft, and all of this is part of our scene writing workshop. So I highly recommend you go to storygrid.com/workshop to find out more. Now, as I talk about these scenes and these constraints, what makes a working scene? This might be one of your questions. And so I put together a 13-point scene writing checklist. It's the exact checklist we use here at StoryGrid. Your coach is going to use in the workshop to help you figure out what you did right, what you did wrong in your writing. And you can download it for free right now by going to storygrid.com/checklist. Now, if you've never heard anybody talk about genre the way I just talked about genre, this is really important. This is going to help your books actually work. And I have a great video that's going to walk you through what genre is and how you actually apply it to your writing. That's up on your screen right now. So click that to continue learning about genre. But either way, thanks so much for being a writer. Thanks so much for being a part of our community here at StoryGrid. I'll see you next time.